Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people where we speak about critical issues in the blindness community and all other issues from across the universe, galaxy, and down under. We should definitely be saying g'day and g'day because we are back live here with both Kirby and Mara. As you know, once you have listened to this episode, you will know who Mara is and you will know who Kirby is. But now let's put them all together and talk about their beautiful podcast. A very good morning to the both of you. And whoever wants to begin, whether it's Mara or Kirby, whoever wants to begin can begin by talking about, okay, what motivated both of you to start a podcast, to not only start a podcast, but to start a podcast together? And really walk through the steps that you took, walk through the podcast, and just basically break it all down for us for the next few minutes today. So let's just talk focusing mostly on the podcast. So go for it. Whoever wants to start can start.
We were talking about music. We are very keen on analyzing music. And so I said we should do this on the internet. Somebody will want to listen to us, essentially. And the rest is kind of history. We made so many episodes and we're making more episodes.
Pretty much, yeah, that's how it kind of started. Yeah, and I think because I was sort of toying with the idea of starting some sort of audio thing, and I don't know what that was. Still, to this day, I don't know what that was. But I wanted to start a thing, only I wanted somebody to do that with, and so Mara's and my podcast was sort of born out of that, and yeah, as Mara said, like we're keen on analysing music, so we just basically essentially what it is we put our musical FaceTime discussions to tape with a few samples in between, and that's how we do it, really. So it's very organic.
That sounds
Except
really...
we had to find a podcast host, which was a bit harder.
Yeah,
absolutely. You have to find the right hosting company, right?
I think we finally found the right one now. But yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about that. So a hosting company, right, is basically where the podcast lives. It's the home of the podcast, where it's actually distributed forthwards to, Apple or Spotify or wherever you like to listen. Absolutely. But so who did you go with for your hosting?
Well, now we're on RSS.com because
that's a very new one. That's a That's a very relatively new one. I started seeing ads for that.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about it. We were initially on Spotify for podcasters because of the music stuff that you could put in the podcast, essentially.
Right.
Yeah, and then we went to Podbean.
We went to Podbean, but we wanted more control over how you could edit the thing.
Right, that's critical.
But then we went to RSS because I found it, essentially.
Right, okay. So what can you tell us about RSS.com?
I like it. It's really, it has unlimited. The main reason for choosing it is because it has unlimited download and upload for free.
Okay, good.
Which was the principal reason for choosing that. And so anyway, it's very accessible for blind people, right?
Ooh, these are things that you should be saying later on in the WhatsApp groups, by the way, because there's a lot of blind people who really are struggling to find accessible hosting platforms that are especially good.
Mara, you can do that part because I don't know.
You want me to do it because I upload them, so yeah, I'll do that later.
Yeah, so Mara uploads them. I edit them.
Yeah, Kirby does all the editing and I do stuff.
That's really cool. That's really, really good. Okay. So yeah, Mara. So let's start with the edit. So first of all, and let's kind of back up a little bit. So both of you must know a lot about music to be able to have a show about music. So what do you know about music? Let's kind of start there.
Okay, what do we know about music? You want to go first, Kirby?
Yeah, I can go first. So, what do I know about music? Well, it started off, I have a music degree. I have a Bachelor of Musical Arts with a major in history and a minor in ensemble skills. I started off in the classical universe of things, only to find out that most of that community in the state I live in, at least, is quite unwelcoming to those that learn differently. So I had to find a new home, which I was able to do. That actually kind of happened really easily when Aretha Franklin comes crashing into your consciousness, which she did in at my university's lecture theatre. I remember sitting in the lecture theatre and we were listening to some an Aretha Franklin live gospel record, well, a song from a live gospel record, and I sat there and I remember, like, from the first note, I had this big red jacket on, and I was sitting. This jacket was a couple of sizes too big for me, which was kind of great at the time. And but what it meant was that I could hide my face because I just started to burst into tears, and I was sitting in the front row, and I was sitting here thinking, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. You don't want the lecturer to see you. Don't cry. Well, of course, the more you think not to do something, the more it happens. And so we got up to the vamp, and luckily for me, the lecturer stopped playing at that point because he made a remark. Oh yeah, it gets a bit emotional here, but I have a sneaking suspicion he didn't mention it, but I have a sneaking suspicion it was because he could see the effect it had on me.
Yeah.
But yes,
exactly.
So that, yeah,
That's
so
how she discovered
that
her right? And so anyway, me and Kirby met in 2002. And 2002 was a watershed year for me musically because I kind of went the reverse route. I was a folkie, right? I'd been a folkie since I was 11. I was like 14. And so, anyway, what happened was I went to Australia that year, with a bunch of other people, and it was the first holiday I took. Well, it wasn't a holiday. It was a working holiday. It was the first time I went anywhere without my parents, basically. And so anyway, we met at this camp, and I was introduced that year to classical music. So I got really into it, and I continued to be a folkie and to study, sort of by experience, the music of the Americas, country music and folk music of the Americas. And then as you know, I went to university, got a psych degree because I didn't want to be a musician. I wanted to be a musician, but I wanted to have something that could make me more money than music because I figured I wasn't going to be super famous. And then we came together.
And then you were able to come together. Right. And so all of that's very interesting. And I'm guessing that I know exactly when you were listening in your lecture hall to the Aretha Franklin, I'm 100% sure what song it was. It was almost certainly, that's a very easy one for me to guess, the most emotional song for people, the one that evokes the most emotion, that was the most famous, was, of course, Natural Woman, which is the most famous one. Mm-hmm.
Actually, no. It was a live gospel album that was recorded in 1972.
Mm-hmm.
It's called The Amazing Grace, The Complete Recordings.
Mm-hmm.
And the actual excerpt, well, the song that we were listening to was a mashup of Carole King's You've Got a Friend and Thomas Dorsey's Precious Lord.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I might have heard that music. Yeah, I was. Well, when you said that person, all I thought was Natural Woman, and I think I am getting it right. Correct? I think
naturally. Yes. Aretha Franklin did sing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a very natural thing to go to. Natural Woman.
Yeah,
great
at least
album, great song, by the way.
Yeah, we have always. I mean, obviously, it's before my generation. I mean, it's before our time. But we always thought that was the most famous song. But maybe it actually wasn't. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Natural Woman wasn't the most famous song.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It
by
is.
Carole King. Natural one is by
Yeah.
Carole King, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah, but
okay.
Aretha sang it first.
Yeah.
Well, and that's always the constant confusion these days because artists are
Sorry.
always turning out, all these covers. There's always a cover of somebody's cover. You can't really tell now
Yeah.
where these songs start and end. That's the problem. But okay,
Yeah. No, it is.
if you're going to structure a podcast, which I think it's a great idea for a podcast, but if you're going to structure yours based about music, so how do you structure each episode? And what aspects of music do you like to focus on and like to learn about when you record episodes?
Wait, that's a big
So
question. Who's going first?
yeah, that's a very big question.
You go first.
I
I'll
can.
go last. Yeah. Yeah, go.
What we do is I have done some volunteer radio work. And what I used to do in that program was I would plan the program in my head. So I would have like I would, excuse me, my voiceover is nattering at me in my ears. I had, I would plan it on a theme. So, and I would put, bits of random music in within this station's, bread and butter. So it might be, Aretha, Bob Dylan, and a Pink song for the set, which the person helping me would pick. It would be, an Emmylou Harris or an Aretha Franklin, and then, I don't know, a Cold Chisel. I'll get to why that's relevant. And why that's relevant to the podcast is because in our podcast, that's how we structure every episode. So we either cover an album, one episode, and then the next one we do a theme. So we've had themes such as, going home and coming back, and we pick songs that describe that theme either metaphorically or physically, sometimes both. And then we'll do an album or a cluster of albums, as it were. So we've published 2 episodes about 2 tribute John Prine records, and
No, we did the Stan Rogers record, and we did something else, but I forget what.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So we've also looked at Baker Street, Jerry Rafferty's Baker Street in an episode. So what we tend to do is we tend to cluster either random songs around a theme, or we tend to look at 2 tracks each from 2 different albums per
from one album.
time.
It's usually one record.
Oh yes, sorry, yes, it normally is one record.
4 tracks from the one record.
Yeah. So it's 4 tracks dedicated to a theme, or 4 tracks from an album, which both of us have discussed beforehand.
Super cool. So you'll take these tracks. So what exactly do you do? You take the tracks from the album, and then do you play excerpts from the tracks, or
because
this is a constant issue that podcasters deal with when they want to include music. It's always hard to know, what music they're allowed to include.
We play 30-second extracts. And if folks want to know what we've discussed, they go look it up on Spotify to hear the whole, or wherever.
That's super cool. That's super cool to play 30 seconds. And I think that's really cool because in 30 seconds, if the song is written perfectly, they can still tell it's perfect within 30 seconds. With any great song, you should be able to tell the quality within the first 30 seconds anyway. So that's true.
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
That's true. Okay. So you would play the song for 30 seconds. And then what? Right. And then you play it for 30 seconds, and then what? Do you analyze it, talk about it? What do you do?
Yeah, we talk about it, basically. Oh, and we have a new theme song.
We do.
We have a pretty awesome theme song, actually. Because we had AI make our theme song, right?
It was written by Suno.
It was written by Suno. I'm just going to show Kirby this for a gimmick, and then it ended up being our theme song, and we're like, oh, sweet, this is us. We're going to make it our theme song.
I see.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Kirby. Yes.
Yeah, so that was fun. Actually, we did that whilst I was actually in Auckland, and we recorded a couple of eps whilst I was over there. So, which was kind of really cool, recording in person.
Yeah, that was cool.
But yeah, so yeah, but it's really interesting editing it because I was using AMAD, but my computer doesn't like AMAD.
Didn't work for some reason.
Yeah.
Amadeus Pro
So
is an
now
old piece of software, but it's really good. If it can
it
work.
is.
It's very, very good.
Yeah, if you can get your computer to work with it, which I can't. So I now use a program called Fission, which is quite good, but it doesn't do it as in depth as I would like it to. But
yeah, it does the job.
But that's okay. It does do the job. I just need to learn how to get the stereo so that it's more.
You need to do that in Audio Hijack to balance that out.
Yeah.
There's a balance.
I've got to put the balance at like
as
somewhere
an editor
to the left or right.
As an editor, Kirby, you'll have to learn over time specifically how to edit and what flavor you want to produce, and you'll have to learn that over many years of doing it. It's not going to come easily, and it's not going to come quickly. Absolutely, yeah.
No,
okay.
No, it's not. And it doesn't.
Nothing does.
But the editing, no. But the editing process and the production process fascinates me, which I think is why I stick with it, because I find that producing something out of a raw product is really interesting. I'm fascinated with the process of making something out of raw material that you've recorded.
Yeah.
And then trying to make it sound as it did whilst you were recording it. There's something really interesting about that process. I've done a bit of music production, both on my own project and I've helped a little bit with Decades stuff. So
sure.
It's so that's what started it for me was me finally being able to, find someone in Pete that was actually and Decade herself, who taught me quite a lot too. Both of them did, actually. They taught me about sound production because I complained to them when I was there once that I'm interested in sound production, and this is true. Like, no one wanted to teach me.
No one's going to teach
I lie.
Yeah, you have to pay a bunch of money.
I lie.
To do it.
It's not. Yeah. It's not the fact that this person, one of the lecturers that I used to get on really well with at my university, wanted to teach me because he could see that I was interested, but the university wouldn't let him do it. And so I expressed my frustration about that, and then Pete and Dec were like, "Oh well, why don't you just learn with us?" And so that's how I actually sort of got taught. And because Pete's really good at describing things, so he drew on my lap what sound waves look like and how they rise and fall,
right? Absolutely,
and things like that. And so then I don't really visualize it per se, but if I'm watching something like I was last night, if I'm watching something where they're talking about it and where they're looking at visuals and they're talking about the visuals, because I know how something is, because I know a little bit about how something is produced, I can picture without picturing it, as it were, what they're seeing. And so yeah, it just makes it really interesting, like having a brain that can sort of think from the inside out, as it were.
Right, absolutely.
I learned to edit from Jonathan Mosen, actually. I do sound production too, right? I've edited episodes of that, and I've done my own music, so I learned pretty much everything I know. I learned from Jonathan Moses.
Yeah, Mara did it the read a book way. I did it the
Yeah,
long
I
way
did
for a
it. Well, I
shortcut.
sort of did it the read a book way, and then I started playing around with it, and I'm like, oh, I can make it sound like this or this or this.
I went the long way for a shortcut. I went from telling somebody with help what to do to doing it myself.
Yeah,
But anyway, we've both we've both got these tools that
Mm-hmm.
that we can use. And I think sound production as a blind person
Mm-hmm.
is I mean I like people say, oh, you need sight to be able to see that. Well, no, you don't.
don't.
All you
Nah.
really need is a good pair of ears.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, you
And
know,
patience. You also need a lot of patience
yes.
too
Oh
for
Yeah, you
yes,
need
that
podcasting.
too.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, you do. You need a lot of patience for that. Um, yeah, like so, it's really funny because a lot of people, oh yeah, but you need sight, you need to be able to see this. Well, no, you don't. You just need a good pair of ears, and if it sounds wrong to you, then it's going to sound wrong in every other mix, right? So,
hmm
you know, or if you don't, like a certain sound, like because of my having done production, when I listen to music now, um, there's certain aspects of production that I listen for. Is the production understated? Is it is it is it too overdone? Is it is it is it sounding natural? Is it sounding as natural as it can for a recorded product? Because you have to
Mm-hmm.
remember that you're dealing with recorded product that's been altered.
Mm-hmm.
So is it sounding as natural as it can? Can you hear that somebody's been overdubbed? Well, yes, if you listen to something carefully, yes, you can. But is the overdubbing done in such a way, especially with voices, that you can't tell unless you really delve?
Mm-hmm.
So those are the sorts of things that I listen for when I'm listening to an album.
Right.
I'm not a great one for overly produced music at all. I like I like raw, natural. I like raw instruments, guitar effects, and that fine.
Mm-hmm.
Just no robots in the studio for me though.
Oh yeah, not many. I
Which,
like if you listen to my
yeah, no,
stuff,
not many.
not many. You can put a bit of reverb, a bit of compression, make yourself sound like a concert hall, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
then with
Symphonies.
reverb you got to be careful because that can be
Gotta be careful.
overused.
Yeah.
It's cool once in a
yeah,
while if you're portraying a horror scene with like a spiritual creature or like a mystical thing. That's
yeah,
when reverb can be used. But it's important to know how to create certain audio effects, and it's important to know not to
yes,
overuse them. That's the thing. The
Mm.
yes,
reason why they're
yeah.
effective is because they're used at the right time. Hmm.
Yeah. A lot of It was funny because I was watching this channel last night, and I won't name drop in this episode. But I was watching this YouTube channel last night, and this guy was saying that we're never ever going to have live performances like John Denver or Joni Mitchell again, because even today, like live performances that you see on television, they're pitch corrected,
Yeah. Hmm.
which I mean, I sort of kind of
I think
knew
he's
that. Oh,
actually right.
he is correct. I know he's correct because this guy uses sound software. to tell. And yeah, it was funny. It basically confirmed what I had been sort of thinking subconsciously for a little while. But it was really interesting to actually, like, be able to glean a picture of the evidence that actually shows that. Because even though he did a comparison with two versions of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, one of which was Judy Garland's from 1939, and another one was a very nicely done cover.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really interesting because although the pitch correction so it wasn't an auto-tuned performance.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the pitch correction had left the vibrato in.
Mm-hmm.
But what hadn't happened was the notes, the natural notes on the voice were not allowed to flow naturally. They were slammed in with vibrato, sort of with the natural vibrato tail. And it was really interesting because human voices don't do that. Human voices are not in tune. They're not a guitar string. And he demonstrated this very clearly, that if you tune a guitar string, if you tune an A string on a guitar, or you, Mara, would know, if you tune an A string on a piano, that pitch, that standard pitch is A440. Now, voices don't do that. Voices, because because the voice is a physiological instrument. We might hit an occasional pitch peak once or twice in a verse, all right? But the rest of the time, we're sliding around pitches, and if you're a very good singer and you can control that, then you're doing a perfect job of singing. If you are not, well, then you're doing an awful job at singing. But if you pitch correct something, then you take away from the performance. Which
exactly, yeah. But this is being done more and more, and this is this is becoming more of a commonality.
Yeah, it's industry standard now.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, so the
really
strangest thing is some people would go to concerts and wouldn't even notice. That's the strange thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, see, there was a pop singer, an incredibly famous pop singer, whom I won't mention because I don't like the name, and I don't like them either. But yes, Mara's chuckling because she knows whom I'm talking about without mentioning whom I'm talking about. Well, anyway, they showed this video once again, showed these 4 clips from 4 different tours from 4 different countries. And even with all this crowd noise, guess what? It was the same audio clip played every time.
Right.
Yeah.
So this singer was miming. So people were paying money to see this singer mime and dance.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, which I think is really tragic, actually.
Which I think is tragic too. Yeah, well, that's what I was getting at. I'm like, wow.
I think it's tragic that I made an AI song, for God's sake. You don't even have to know how to play properly anymore.
Yeah, no, you don't. You don't even have to sing properly now. But what they had actually done was they had used studio trickery on this vocal track of this particular pop singer to make it sound live. So they'd left plosives in on a mic, which you wouldn't do in the studio, but they had. So they were using trickery to manipulate this singer's voice to make it sound live. And everyone was singing along effectively to this track, which was an MP3 file directed from somewhere backstage, just played at a really loud volume. I mean, I'm sure, this happens everywhere, but it was just a stark reminder to me, that
music is very processed now.
Oh yeah. Unless you're going to go and see, a band of 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old musicians who don't do that, then yes, music is processed. or you've got someone really young like Tish Melton who was doing the natural the natural live thing because she's working with somebody that does it. And I'm sorry, I did say I wouldn't name drop, but I just did.
Yeah.
But anyway, nevertheless, yeah, it's just really interesting to hear how you know the experience of seeing somebody live, as I said, unless you are going to see unless you're going to see musicians who are actual musicians, then you're not going to get a real live product. You're going to get a processed
Contrived
version.
product.
Yeah,
But you
of a
even
live
got
product.
you got contrived products of John Denver too, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you probably have. Especially
Somebody
now
said
that he's
the best John Denver show they ever. I knew this guy, right, who saw John Denver a couple of times. And he said,
yeah.
the first time I saw him, I could have listened to the record. It was just exactly the same. And the second time I
Wow.
saw him was in a little tiny coffee house with his guitar, and he played the set, and it was awesome.
Wow. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because yeah, yeah.
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 This is the sort of stuff we talk about all day,
See,
pretty
this
much.
is,
Like we
and
do
this
it
is
on the internet.
this is a great preview of what's to
Yeah.
come when people download the podcast. So, okay.
Yeah,
So really
this is
good.
the kind of stuff that we talk about all day.
So you kind of geek out and appreciate music and kind of review different interesting things about the music. What about, have you covered,
Yes.
when you do these various episodes about various performers or musicians or your songs, do you ever go into a little segment where you talk about the historical implications about what was going on in history at the time that piece was written? Because a
Sometimes,
lot,
yeah.
because
Sometimes,
that can be a
yes.
lot of the meaning behind the song is to study what was going on in the country where it was written at that time. So that's another huge section that you could expand upon for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we do that
Yes.
sometimes. I'm the
We do
history buff,
sometimes.
but yeah. We
Yeah.
find it
Mara's the
interesting.
history buff. I'm more of the who recorded this with who person, and I'm more of the person that goes, oh, who influenced, I don't know, say,
ABC, XYZ.
yeah, and who played with this record and who played with XYZ, who was XYZ's friends, you know. Um, I do like history, but I tend to do it more from who was with who played with who was with who was hanging out with who. Um,
Hmm.
so I tend to do it more from the people standpoint, whereas Mara delves a bit more into the political stuff. And it's not because I find the political stuff boring. It's just because I mean I don't. I actually find it fascinating. But it's just that, you know, like I would tend to look at the people first and then
Hmm.
delve into the politics second, whereas Mara looks at the politics first and then might delve into the people second.
Right.
So we get around to the same point eventually. It's just that we have different ways of getting there, which makes the show really interesting, actually.
Yeah,
Absolutely, it
yeah.
does. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that is really, really interesting. So, you know, you've released 7 episodes, which does not sound like a lot to you, but it actually is very important to say that because most podcasters never make it past episode 8. So
Oh,
the fact that you have released 7 about this very specific thing is a very, very telling sign that
We
your
need to get
podcast will be.
episode 8 out there. We need to get more
yeah, we do.
material at some
Yeah.
point soon.
Hmm.
I'm just trying to figure out whether we put because we've done a song analysis.
Thing. We're trying to figure out where to put the song analysis thing. But we don't know where yet.
Yeah.
And
then I've got
right.
to put it together.
And what do you mean you did
Kirby,
a song analysis? Can you walk us through that a little bit more? What do you mean
we
song analysis?
played like verse by verse of a certain song and we talked about it. So kind of
Right.
like those reaction videos you see on YouTube where we were doing it in audio.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
see. So it's like you produce some reaction to how a piece of music affected you.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
It's really important. That's really, really
And
good. Yeah.
and we talked about like our favorite lyrical bits
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we talked
in
about that
this
too.
in this song, and yeah, and things like that. So yeah, like that's what we've done. We've only done one, but I think we're going to end up
We're
doing
gonna
more.
do some more of those because it's cool.
Yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
actually is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That can be very powerful, especially if you do it with a classical piece or, you know, what other music really comes to the forefront of my mind about this. You should be reviewing and doing episodes based on really anyone you like, but certainly based on the musicians that we've interviewed at Aaron's Opinion, because as you know,
Ooh.
we have
Oh, we could do that, eh?
we have a playlist.
You have
We
a
have a
playlist on
playlist,
Spotify.
right? Aaron's Opinion Select, and what you can
Yeah, I've
do
got to
is,
go on Spotify and find that.
well,
Yeah, I gotta find
I'll
it
send it
too.
in the
Oh,
WhatsApp.
send it to WhatsApp. Okay, sweet.
So
Yeah, drop
what you
it to
can
us in WhatsApp.
do is you can take that playlist and not only can you play 30 seconds of a song from any of these other blind people, which will be a huge supportive thing to them, but you will know that they are other blind musicians and that they will enjoy and appreciate their track being reviewed and being talked about. And that would be so exciting for them. And then you can come in Aaron's Opinion, the private guest group and talk about it. And that would be, a tremendously beneficial thing. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Actually, yeah, because we've never thought about that. Funny that.
I mean, well, it's not that we don't think about blind people. We think about blind people a lot, but it's who we are, right? So
That's
Yeah.
like,
true. No,
think
I
about
do
blind
see what I
people
do
because
completely get
like,
that you wanted to review specifically the great music from around the world, but also too,
That,
it can be
that
very
was what I was going to say. Like, it's not that we
right.
yeah.
don't think about. It's not that we don't think about blind people. We actually
Mm-hmm.
think about blind people all the time, but it's sort of it's who we are kind of thing. So
Right.
it's natural to
Absolutely.
think about it, but we just how do I say
Yeah,
this
nicely.
nicely? It's not even necessarily that we forget. I guess it's it can feel a little bit like
Close.
yeah,
That's the word I would use. Yeah.
it can feel a little bit close.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, yeah, and yeah, but we will look at
We
doing that
will look at
actually
it. Yeah, we should do that.
because it's funny because blind musicians don't. Well, I mean, unless you're Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles, but they had sighted yes men behind them, so
Blind musicians don't get that famous. Well, a
no.
lot of people don't get that famous.
Well, a lot of people
Right.
don't.
So most people never get recognized. So the fact that you can take any of these songs from the playlist and give them a full review on your podcast, well, that would give them exposure. Then people would know who it
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
and then they would know to listen to
yeah.
them. Yeah.
Pretty
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
much.
exactly. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a
Absolutely.
good thing. Yeah. No,
Yeah, that's a
I
good
think
thing.
that's actually a yeah. Because people need exposure. And it's funny, because Aaron and I was chatting about being a musician and not actually really knowing what to do with and being happy not knowing what to do with it. Or rather, being happy not putting pressure on myself
Mm-hmm.
to become a a gigging musician, like just to do it for my own, sing songs to my guide dog sort of thing. I think in a lot of senses there's a revelation that there's a revelatory thing to that too, because it takes the pressure off you as a
Yeah.
as a person, you know, to make something of life. And I'm not saying that I celebrate being unproductive, because I'm actually not an unproductive person. It's just that for me, and I discussed all this with my singing teacher, like for me, putting pressure on myself, it was actually doing me a lot of harm.
Right, absolutely.
Because I then stopped actually enjoying myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And,
that's why I didn't do a music degree, because
right.
I
So I mean, that's the thing. You should always keep.
Whereas I didn't. I just went, yeah, this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm doing, and this is, you know, this is how I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the academiaization of it took a little bit of joy out of it for me.
Right.
But I'm slowly getting it back, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. The moment that you stop enjoying recording these episodes for your show, that's when you should stop. Because if you aren't going to enjoy it, don't do it. And I don't mean that to sound crass. I really don't mean to sound nasty. But if you really don't want to do it, please don't, because people will be able to secretly tell if you really love what you're doing or not. And they will be able to tell, and they'll be able to listen and be able to notice, you know, oh, you know, she really has a genuine interest. Or the other thing about the history thing that can be impressive for people is when you really impress people with the historical backing of a song and what was going on in the country or society, that shows that you actually really have an interest. That's and apart from the fact, I just really love the history behind these things, and you know what was going on in the country at the time. And you know, a lot of these songs from the States, and I really don't know anything about, actually, I don't know anything at all about the music down under. I really don't. But one thing I can say about the music from the States is that much of it from the 20th century was based upon, okay, what's going on in America right now? Who's in the White House? What political message do we want to transmit? How do we do it? You know, that's really what music in America is mostly about. So no, I mean, I do think, and I mean this in a complete sense of utter support for what both of you women are doing. It's absolutely, totally on board with it. But one thing I'll say to help you, to motivate you further, to push your message further in the right direction is, yes, if you're talking about an American song, you definitely need to cover the history, because if it was written to express a reason. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure the Australian music is the same way, except for the fact that I just don't know enough about the history of Australia or New Zealand to know. But I'm sure that there was a lot of historic implications behind a lot of these songs. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there are. But I also think, well, this is going to sound slightly controversial because I am an Aussie. But I'll say it anyway. I also think, though, that a lot of the Aussie stuff that's coming out, especially now, is actually a derivative of what's going on overseas. So you have
pretty much the same here.
You have, you know, great songwriters who are telling stories, but it's very derivative. You know, no one is quite a Paul Kelly anymore. Paul Kelly, for those who might not know, is Australia's equivalent to Bob Dylan.
That's what was Eric Vogel.
So that person that you just mentioned, no, I've never heard of them. But I know in my mind.
Eric Vogel's another one as well, but no, Paul Kelly's probably more so. The Bob Dylan.
So it's like
equivalent.
Right. So it would have that same sort of sound as Bob Dylan, right? Or similar to Bob Dylan or Johnny Cash or somebody like that, right? Exactly.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, sort of. More so in the way that Paul Kelly writes.
Right.
I would say, rather than his vocal or his style.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, Paul Kelly's the best thing we've got to Bob Dylan, so you know, he tells stories about, you know, the Australian working class, or, you know, like
It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. You see?
You know,
So up over, we never would have known of this person. See, that's exactly why you need to be sharing your podcast in my groups, and this
yeah,
is exactly why we need to get the message out, because there's so
and
much knowledge that you guys will be able to transmit. This is why it's valuable. Super cool.
oh, thank you, and yeah, you know, stuff
Yeah.
like that.
We should do an episode on Bob Dylan derivative. It would be fun, actually. We should do a whole
Yeah, it would
episode.
Okay,
actually be
but
really
here's
fun.
the thing. But Mara, here's the thing. If you're going to do an episode about Bob Dylan derivative, as in, I suppose you mean musicians that cover music similar to that, right? That's sort
Yeah.
of okay,
Sorry.
right?
Yeah, we
Right.
can do that. But anyway,
Right.
everybody, yeah.
But see what I'm saying though, okay, to kind of rewind it a little bit though. If you're going to do a derivative, well then you have to do an original. So what I mean is
Yes, we do.
you do realize that if you're going to do an episode, this is where you can parallel park, right? If you're gonna produce an episode
Yeah.
about somebody in down under there in New Zealand or Australia who was similar to Bob Dylan, well, that would mean that you would have to do a little research project on Bob Dylan to be able to know if the comparison is accurate. Now,
Yes.
if the musicians were all alive at the same time period, okay, they almost certainly knew of each other. Now, I'm not saying they met or had a beer together, but they certainly listened to each other's music, or at very least a manager made them aware of each other's music. So if songs sound similar, they sound similar for a reason. And they sound similar because
course.
somebody wanted somebody else
Yeah.
to know that somebody else exists. That's what I'm saying. So there is a social implication that once you really unfold it in these
Oh,
episodes,
yes, there is.
you know, and when you really intellectualize it, it's really, really disturbingly fascinating, actually. You know, when you
Oh,
really stop
yes.
to think about all the
Yeah,
details.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
It actually is, like, you know, because I mean, like, yeah, like, you know, everything has a social implication, you know,
Yeah,
whether
pretty
it's
much.
music or art
Right.
or
Anything. When I was at
or
university, I discovered social constructionism, basically. The idea that everything is socially constructed, including money. And I'm like, I'm not gonna pay my bill because it's socially constructed. Well, like, I
yeah.
did pay my phone bill, but like, I thought about that a lot.
See, isn't it funny? Because I didn't learn about that, but it's always been a subconscious thought that I've had.
Yeah.
You know,
Money is
that
socially
everything.
constructed.
Yeah,
Everything is
but everything is socially constructed, though.
pretty much, yeah, yeah.
I mean, look, if you think about it, if we weren't living in a socially constructed society, we'd be back to being cavemen again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like we need these social constructs, and I don't really think that any humans, especially in Western society, we don't know how to hunt and gather anymore.
Yep, that's right. And like, did you know that like Australia and New Zealand are the worst places for us to cover evolutionary because we're all white? And this is not like
Yeah.
being racist. This is just saying. Well, not everybody who lives in New Zealand is
I
white.
see.
But like, you know, we came out of Africa where we were black and we sort of turned into white people. So like, this is kind of
not exactly.
sort of.
Okay, not exactly.
Yeah, I know that I'm simplifying the process horribly, but somebody recently said on our radio that New Zealand and Australia are the worst places to come evolutionarily.
What happened was the ancient people, because I have a passion for it. The ancient people, I'll tell you, since you didn't pay attention in your history class, I'll give you a lesson. So what happened was the ancient people came
Sorry, I might
from
have.
the what?
Sorry, I think I missed this part of history, so I'm paying really, really big
Yeah,
attention.
we're paying the big
So
attention.
let me tell you. So once upon a time, okay, you're in the historical framework of your mind, okay? Imagine thousands of years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago. We're not going to dig too deeply because it'll get us really far off track. But one thing that I will say is that there was a group of people, okay? We're not going to geek out too much about it because it it can be, although I'm fascinated by it, it does bother some people, and there's a lot of different controversy around it. There were a group of people, and we'll call them people, and they basically were living in what is probably modern day any country within the Asia, okay?
Yeah.
And there was apparently a massive flood, and there's a lot of evidence for this. And there was a massive flood, and this group of people, they actually got onto rafts, and they managed to get their rafts all the way to what would become Australia. And that's how people came. Is that it's believed that originally the people who washed up on Australia's shores the first time, when it was just land, obviously, they came there basically by force. They were obviously, ironically, which will become important later. They ironically had no choice in the matter. They had to just get on a raft, hold on, and the raft eventually landed there, and they just got off.
Oh wow!
The
I
other,
didn't know.
Boy, the irony of that in today's society.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow.
and that's how these
Boy.
ancient people, you do understand, I have to clarify, I'm not talking about something that happened a couple of 100 years ago. I'm talking
Oh,
Yeah,
about
no,
yeah.
something
no.
that happened several
Yeah.
100,000 years ago,
Dozen
before
years
modern history.
ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah,
we just have
yeah,
to
no,
clarify.
exactly.
Okay. And so, yes, so that's how human beings found Australia originally. Now, what would eventually happen is, yes, you're right. Eventually, the British needed a penal colony, and then started sending
Sending
criminals to
people
Australia,
down there.
and
Pretty
things
much,
like
yeah.
that. And that's how
It's,
people colonized Australia originally. Which, when you stop and think now, probably though, original, I don't know, Kirby, but probably originally when the Great Britain was kicking out their criminals, probably the population of Australia was probably very low. It was probably a very isolating place at first. Probably it
Well,
certainly, the cities were not booming always, right? Certainly
yeah,
there
Sydney
were
and
actually
Melbourne were not
no
exciting
there
initially.
were
Yeah.
actually no cities there
Yeah. Hmm.
before um before British settlement.
Exactly. Hmm. Exactly right.
So so basically how it, and I shouldn't laugh because it's not it, well,
it's not
it's
that
not
funny.
it's not that funny, but I'm chuckling. Well, I'm chuckling ironically because there's big controversy about this at the moment. Particularly between some Indigenous left wing factions and Indigenous right wing factions who don't agree, and then there's non-Indigenous folks that do agree, and then there's those who don't. But anyway,
Mm.
a very long story short, essentially what happened was, yes, you're right, we were settled convicts. So people had no choice. They were just sent here. And, um, you know, and they were made to build cities and, you know, things like that. And yes, they fought with the
Indigenous
natives,
people.
indigenous people. Sorry.
Just want to get.
But yeah, they well at the time they were called natives, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's put some context
Let's
here.
put context in it. Yeah.
At the time they were called natives, what we would now call our indigenous people, right? And they, well, basically, um, the depending upon which history you, well, no, sorry, I'll go back. Essentially, what happened was the Brits, the Europeans were of the opinion that basically savages, natives, non-people, we can just go there and inhabit, bring our own plants, bring our own animals, and whatever, and everything will be hunky dory. Of course, it was not, but that's what they thought. It was because because to them it was barren land, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There was no one there. Now, am I saying that I think it's right or wrong? Well, no, because I wasn't there. It's not my responsibility to judge history. That's just what happened, right? Um, uh, so yeah, like and this is where the problem is because there are people, oh, that's wrong, you shouldn't have done that. It's like, well, yeah, but like that was like 200 odd years ago. Like you can't change the course of history now. It is what it is, right? I mean, sure, like we can listen and we can try to empathize, and we can say, oh well, look, which we have done. Oh, sorry, the stolen generation happened. It shouldn't have happened, but it did. And okay, like it shouldn't have happened, but it did. That shouldn't have happened. I agree with that, definitely.
But
having said,
Kevin
Rudd did, yeah.
Kevin Rudd, that's what I remember.
But having said that, if it didn't happen, then people wouldn't be assimilated. I mean, look, should it have happened in the way it did? No. But they had their reasons, and I don't know what those reasons were. I'm not going to go into what those reasons were because, frankly, I don't know. I wasn't there. It's not my argument to have. And I think this is the whole issue with it, is that people, and this is why I steer clear of these debates, because well, I'm not going to take responsibility for something that happened when I wasn't born, and secondarily, I am not going to be ashamed of things that happened in the past for which I was not involved with. But, but that's why I just don't get involved in those debates personally, because I don't know what happened. It wasn't my responsibility. I'm not saying that we shouldn't listen to the stories and that we shouldn't sort of go, oh my God, that was horrible, because yes, we need to acknowledge that what's happened is horrible and that what's happened isn't right. But I think the fact that people are telling us that we, as my generation, has to take responsibility for that. No, sorry, we can't take responsibility for stuff that happened 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 200 years ago, because we weren't there. And basically, the British had muskets and the Indigenous people had spears. Well, I'm sorry, but who's going to win out of that?
Yeah, they gave them to the
Maori.
British gave muskets to the Maori, and the Maori started fighting each other with them. That's the simplified version, but yeah. Yeah.
So for someone,
it's all very interesting.
It's really so for people who didn't really want to talk history at first. Wow, you guys definitely wanted to talk history. That's really incredible. So I mean, I definitely think you should have a historical section on your podcast to go over. And let's review. And I know I've reviewed it with several other people from Australia. That we need to make a point of saying that up over in the Americas, the word we call the people that you called indigenous. We don't say that word. We say First Nations is what we have to say.
Oh, of course, yes.
First Nations.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah. The word indigenous, as I've told people, it's not a slur. It's not a slur, but it's just not. The reason why it's a problematic word is that it's a word of generalization. And if you say First Nations, you're being more specific to refer to someone who could be of many different backgrounds. So that's why it's important to try
to say. I think
I think your thing is First Nations as well.
Yeah, I think ours is, yeah.
Ours is, I don't know, I kind of didn't want to talk about this, but anyway, our First Nations, well, we only have one, but it's usually this technical, well, depends who you talk to, right?
Right, absolutely.
So there's a lot of things going on in society.
Sure. So I mean, I think there's a lot that you can. Anyway, that's wonderful. Yeah, there's a lot that you can cover on your podcast. Absolutely. Well, really good. Well, what have you noticed these days about your demographics and your audience, and like who listens to you these days? Mm-hmm.
Australians. That's what I see on the stats, and people, mostly Australians.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that makes me laugh.
Why?
Don't know. Just the irony of it, I suspect.
Mostly Australians listen to us. There's a few people from the UK, but I think it's because I sent them the link. Anyway.
Well, I tell you what, once you give me the link on Spotify to your podcast, I will definitely share it with my listeners and my audience, and then you'll have a whole global audience. So
Yeah.
Oh yes, I actually did put our Apple Podcast link in, Aaron. It would have been a couple of days ago, a week or two ago, actually.
Well, you mean you submitted to Apple Podcast, or you?
Yeah, it's on Apple
No,
Podcast. But
it is.
It's already on Apple Podcast.
It is.
Kirby put it in the WhatsApp group.
Ah, oh, you did. Okay.
Yes.
I tell you what, if you can send it to me, I will share it around. So send it to me directly,
sure,
and then I'll get it out. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'll send
awesome.
it.
Yeah, but feel free to Well,
there's so many.
if you get
The problem is, there's so many messages in these groups. It can get disorienting. That's the problem. These groups are luckily getting very, very impressively large, and people are having all these great global conversations, which I really appreciate. It's wonderful, but still, from time to time, you gotta realize, just because you put a link somewhere, it doesn't mean that it's noticeable, or just because you think I saw it, it doesn't mean I did. Yeah. So, but if you send it in the group, I'll have it. It's super good, super good. Well, really good. So, considering that I've been podcasting for, for 5 years, over 5 years, what are some questions that both of you have for me as someone who's already been podcasting? I'm sure there's some deep questions you want to ask about the podcast art form and the do's, don'ts, lefts, rights, in betweens, ins, outs. So what do you really want to know?
Oh God, I don't know. You should have canvassed us beforehand. Told us you were gonna ask that.
You should have. You should see. This is what I want guests to do. I want guests to anticipate. I want guests to anticipate questions that will be asked. You see. Mm-hmm.
Well, being as I already asked you about editing last time that we interviewed. Sorry.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Even I'm a bit confused now. That's not very hard, folks. I've only had one coffee this morning. Yeah. What are some of the, like, in podcasting? Because I mean, there are, well, from what I have gleaned from listening to an awful lot of podcasts, which I do, I listen a lot to podcasts of varying interests. What are some of the do's and don'ts, especially being as you're dealing with a podcast where you interview people?
Yeah, I would say that when you're interviewing anybody, you need to know who you're interviewing, and you need to know who your audience is, and you need to know that you need to produce a consistent product over many, many, many years. And that's how podcasts move forward, is by people realizing that the quality is what they want and consistent. Definitely. That's the main thing. The other thing is to also not take things personally. Don't be too hard on yourself. Go with the flow. If somebody, we've had a lot of people, you just don't know who they are, and I'm not going to tell you who they are, but you're going to encounter, if you do more interviews, eventually you're going to interview the wrong person. Either they'll say something they shouldn't, either they will, the other problem that we've had in the past here, in Aaron's opinion, is we've had interviews with people, and then they lash out later on, or they do something strange, later on, and that's something you have to be really careful about. Is okay, what are these person's true intentions? And you don't really know. The thing is, people will say, "Oh, here's how you can tell." No, you can't tell. If people are going to misbehave on a podcast, they're not going to tell you that they're going to misbehave, to some extent. There's always clues, but you never quite know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
And if you're doing a podcast where you don't interview, like Mara and I, that's not because we don't like interviewing. It's just because we just don't.
Well, I think what you'll find. What would be? So I think what you should try to do, and I think it will be, you'll need to practice, and it's not going to be easy. but you should try to do an episode of your podcast. And tell us again, what is your podcast called?
KHMK MusicTalk.
Okay, say it, one of you. Say it again, one of you.
KHMK. Oh, here we go. Sorry.
KHMK MusicTalk.
So KHMK, Kirby Harris, Mara Kelland.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, KHMK MusicTalk. Okay, interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. Very, very, very good. Okay, so yeah, I think something to work towards, a goal for you two, will be to do an episode where you cover one of the albums from Aaron's Opinion Select, and then you choose to actually interview that person after you actually do the. So you'd
we should do that actually.
And then you can put it all together. And then you can put it all together and say, so now we learned about this song. Next week we're going to sit down with the artist and talk to them. And now you know. And that would be a tremendous thing that you could put together. Now, some of the people you know very well. Some of them are more shy. Some of them are, more reserved about things, but I think that would be once you master Zoom and sending out Zoom invites and recording Zoom meetings and then pulling out the audio, pulling out the video, an interview style where you do one week, you would say, and you can go back and forth. You can say, okay, this week we're just going to do analysis of this song. Next week we're going to interview the artist who wrote it. Next week we're going to do another analysis, or you can mix it up, interview, analysis, or you can do interview, analysis, and then one where you just talk about music history. You could do another one where you talk about musical instruments throughout time, how different instruments in different parts of the world sound different and why that is, and all those facets. It's really fun. Really cool.
That.
See, I'm giving you all these ideas.
We should interview Carvin Knowles, that lute player guy we met at KBB.
Oh,
that would be so much.
To him again for so long.
That would be so much fun,
that guy.
Yeah, he's a cool dude.
He is also the nicest guy I met.
He pretty much is one of the nicest guys you'll meet.
Yeah.
But he knows about that stuff.
He does. So does my mate Owen, but Owen's a bit funny about appearing on video, so...
Well, we don't have to do video, we just do audio.
Yeah, that's true,
Yeah, but if he doesn't want to do video, he won't want to do audio.
Oh, yeah, true.
Some people are very shy and just prefer to be private, and I respect that. I get that. Not everybody's willing to be
me too.
front and center on a show, and that's totally fine. Yeah.
See, it's fun, because Owen probably wouldn't mind doing a Zoom call as long as he didn't have to show his face. Because Owen likes talking, and Owen knows Mara and I, so...
Yeah, Owen's a really good friend of
mine. Yeah, he is.
He's very good at talking.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
But thanks for all those ideas. You've certainly given us some things food for thought. We like food for thought. We just have to now munch on it and see where it goes.
Absolutely.
I know, terrible metaphor, but
yeah,
is that even a metaphor?
No, that's not a metaphor. No, it's not. What is it? It's something. It's kind of personification. High school poetry class. Oh, did I tell you about my English teacher? No, I didn't. No, I haven't told anybody this. I told my mother this, but I'm changing my email address, right? You have the one I am using, Aaron, so it's alright. Because I have too many emails. So I email my old English teacher. I email a bunch of people, right? So I'm changing my email address. And my old English teacher from high school goes, "Who's stalking me now?" Because I used to call him the stalker, right? And then he said, "I retired and I joined the Senior Citizens Club and spend my days chasing the lady." Yeah, that was meant to be funny.
Mara, maybe you need.
Maybe I need to.
Maybe you need.
Start a comedy.
Maybe you need to stop sending emails.
Yeah, maybe I do.
See, I used to, back in my uni days, I used to send these really long, thought-provoking,
so did
random
I,
emails to
so did
people.
I, but I don't do it I don't do it anymore because it
Nah,
takes too much time,
I think
basically.
I got to tell you,
I
I
don't do
think
it
that's
anymore either because I've ran out of thoughts.
Yeah, pretty much. Put them in
I
like
think I got to
140
Well, no,
say,
that's not
characters.
entirely true. But
I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I gotta say that I think that's a blindism. I think that's something that blind people like to do. I think blind people like to write long emails where they explain things, and that's not. It's
yeah,
endearing. It is endearing, but it's not always socially appropriate for sighted people. That's the thing. So
Yeah.
no, it's
you have to
not.
be careful about that. That some people are okay with it, and some people are endeared by it, but not all the time. So you have to be careful.
No.
Right.
I was lucky enough that I only ever did it to two people, and those two people, one of whom was a lecturer who greatly appreciated it, and the other one was a friend of mine that I've known since childhood.
Yeah, I did it
I
to
was
quite a
actually
few
pretty
people,
lucky.
but not like 100 people.
No,
Yeah.
I've only ever done it to two, but I was pretty lucky in so much
I
as
think
that.
I probably did it to 3 or 4 people, but yeah.
Yeah,
One of them told me to stop,
did.
so I stopped. So like,
I
okay,
did it to
3
half as many, and no, I just
then.
don't.
Yeah, don't anymore. Don't
And it's
anymore.
probably good because I was probably annoying them, even though they didn't want to admit.
I mean, look, I don't mind. I mean, if it's somebody in the Aaron's Opinion family like you that writes a nice long email where you give a lot of knowledge and information and it's well written and and it's done in a respectful and serious way, no worries, go for it. But
Yeah,
a lot of times people write these long emails when they're trying to just sort of burn off some steam, and that's noticeable. That's the
Yeah.
thing,
no, that's not me.
Well, which I never thought it was, and nor would I accuse you of being that person. But what I can say
Oh
is,
yeah, no, of course not.
so what I'm
Sorry.
saying is just that's fine. It doesn't bother me, but just and I have to do it too. I'm not perfect either. I have to constantly, you have to self-monitor and think, okay,
Oh,
Yeah.
does the sighted
yeah, you
person
do.
really?
Yeah.
And sighted people, I have found, considering that I live with two of them, my parents who are elderly now, sighted people are very. Can either be more they will either like a long email or they will not like it at all. So people are a lot more
Yeah.
sensitized to it than you're aware. Now, us blind people, we don't mind
Yeah, they
because we
are.
have the compassion to know, well, you know what? Here's a little secret. If you're blind, maybe maybe writing emails is a good outlet, is therapeutic. And I totally get it. But
Mm,
that's why people need to get into
same.
podcasting or online radio.
Yeah, pretty much.
There are more, there are appropriate ways of getting into activities that are appropriate and are effective as far as, channeling your excess knowledge and excess energy. But no, that's totally fine, Kirby.
Yeah,
But just
I agree. Yeah,
you have to
it's
harness.
yeah,
It's like putting the harness on your guide dog there, right? You got to harness him. You can't
Yeah.
just let him run
yeah,
free, and that's
yeah.
exactly what it is. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's kind of why I don't do it anymore because, well,
Yeah, that's why I
because
don't do it
Oh,
anymore
I know.
too.
I'm not going to tell you who it is,
and
but
it's not
somebody here at Aaron's Opinion used
and
to do it. And when I was a little boy, the person used to do these long emails, and my mother would always be kind of puzzled by it and think, what is going on,
Mm,
I've lost touch with the guy. He doesn't comment very much, but I know who it is, and he knows who he is, and he's a big fan of the show, and we love him, and he's a great sense of
Yeah.
inspiration. But he did used to write these long emails, which are fine as long as you understand that it both inspires people and turns people away. So there's a healthy
yeah,
medium, which now, how do you tell the
Yeah.
difference? Well, I don't know. You have to figure it out. You have to figure out what's just enough information. I tend to tell people, write short emails, write a direct paragraph, about 5 sentences. And if the other end needs more information, they should be the one to ask. That's
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
you can tell. Yeah.
But people don't send emails anymore. They write text messages and mastodons and tweets. And
Well,
yeah.
let's not get overboard with those either. So don't be doing any
Yeah.
long 10-page iMessages either, because those were
No, I
definitely.
won't. Don't worry.
Yeah. Why am I
I don't
worried?
send you long
Nah,
IS.
Why do I have worry?
I actually don't either.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Okay.
Just
Okay.
a sentence or two.
Well, actually, no. For me, like it depends who I'm talking to.
Mm-hmm.
If like if I need to send somebody a message that is
Mm-hmm.
2-3 sentences long, then yes, I will do so. But if
Right.
I don't,
Right.
then I don't.
Then
Like
you don't.
it
Yeah.
depends. Because I've got friends who I have friends who don't like it when I send them a message that just
Mm-hmm.
says, "Oh, okay." They would rather me say, "Oh, yes, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm heading into XYZ of a place at XYZ of a time. See you then."
Mm.
But then,
Right.
but then I know other people who are more than happy with, "Oh, okay, cool."
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
like,
Yeah.
it really depends, like, on who you're talking to,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and what they have what you have gleaned from conversations with them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember
Oh yeah.
to this dear friend when I knew them from childhood, and I
Mm-hmm.
remember I sent them an email saying that I had discovered Fleetwood Mac because I'd been reading Mick Fleetwood's book at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was going through a really badly anemic period, so I wasn't sleeping. So I just used to like read for like hours of a night time
Right. Exactly.
because there was nothing else to do.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and he sent me this like chuckling email going, "Oh my God, you've discovered
Right.
Fleetwood Mac." Yeah, I was there the first time. I went, "Yeah, but this is so
I
cool.
was
It's
there
so
and
cool.
I
It's
was
this
sitting
and that."
and the person was probably, well, let me guess, they were sitting in the front row of the pavilion eating popcorn and drinking beer, and they were wearing a red shirt, and they remember it just like yesterday. Exactly.
Just
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, no, well, no, he was just like,
mhm.
"Oh, yeah, I remember their records, like, when they first came out." I'm like, "Huh? Yeah, discovered Rumors, Rumors are brilliant." And they're
They were
like, "Yeah."
that group that you just mentioned there at the end. You should definitely do so when you review their music. You should
Yeah, we
definitely
should
do
do
so.
Fleetwood
They
Mac.
should. You should definitely review their music, and you should definitely do a
It's actually
historical
funny
analysis
because,
because
yeah, because a lot of people don't actually know that Fleetwood Mac started in England as a blues band.
absolutely.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So when people think of Fleetwood Mac,
Right.
most people think of when Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham joined.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But actually, the band had started a long time before that.
Right. Exactly right. Well,
Um,
so Kirby, I would like
so
to
yeah, we
say
should actually do that.
so
Yeah, we should do that.
Kirby. I would like to
Yes.
say, I would like to tell both of you,
Sorry.
this is no worries, mate. This is a good illustration of why one thing that you don't do in podcasting a whole lot, which is why I don't do it a lot, is try to interview one person at a time. Because quite frankly, when you get three people on one Zoom, the audio is a little disorienting like this. But I wanted to take this time and say, so thank you to both of you for getting up early in the morning over there in your part of the world to come on to the show today and produce such a beautiful episode with such a beautiful message. We will certainly get your podcast out to my audience around the world, and we'll definitely get your downloads up and things like that. So yeah, where can somebody find your podcast? And certainly I would like either one of you to type up a little description about your podcast for me and include the links. And you can send that over just in the WhatsApp. But until then though,
Yeah.
how can somebody find out more about what you guys are doing and how can they get in touch with your podcast?
It's rsf.com/KHMK Music. I'm
Oh,
pretty sure
really?
that's
Oh, okay.
yeah.
That's kind of useful. So it's just, okay, definitely send me that link. Okay.
I'll send it to you.
When you type up your description about your podcast, just put that link at the bottom and then that will direct people. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Okay. Well, really, really
Yeah,
good.
I think Mara's right.
Yeah, I
No,
think
that
I'm
I
sounds
think
right.
Mara's right
right.
about that. Uh,
That does sound right. Yes, it definitely
Yeah.
does. Okay. All right. All right. Well,
um,
I want to say that
yeah,
this is
if
about, yes.
sorry, I was just going to say, if people wanted to contact me, as mentioned in my previous episode, you're probably best off to do that um, via Mastodon or Facebook Messenger, because I'm not actually, like, I use more the Messenger part of
Right.
Facebook rather than the actual
Facebook.
um, Facebook.
You can find me on marakelland.com, which is actually going to be taken down eventually, but it's there.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't say that in that case then.
No, I shouldn't say that, should I? Facebook.
Because when it's taken down, it's taken down.
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, etc., etc.
Yeah, it's funny, yeah, because I actually am on those. I just don't. I probably will start using them though when I get a pair of Meta glasses.
Have you
So
seen them
don't be
yet?
surprised if my. I saw them with you, but
Oh, okay,
my
I leave
O&M
it with
is going to loan me a pair as well, so I can have a bit more of a demo.
Oh,
Right.
cool. Anyway.
So don't be surprised if all of my Facebook etc. activity just goes up, even though I've said that it hasn't, but it might.
Right.
So I tend to be a bit like that. I tend to sort of not be on Facebook for a while, and then I'm on there for like yonks,
Sure.
and then I just disappear, and then I'm there, and then yeah.
Right.
I've always been like that.
That's good. Well, I want to take this time again. Thank you to both of you, and we will definitely show your podcast around my community in the Aaron's Opinion family here, and we'll definitely get your downloads up and get your podcast around the world, because once you keep doing a lot of these episodes where you cover a lot of music, it's a lot of knowledge and a lot of fun. So until next time, I want to say thank you to Mara and thank you to Kirby. Have a wonderful day in New Zealand. Have a wonderful day in Australia. Have a wonderful day everywhere else.
And we want to thank you too.
We want to thank you too.
You're always welcome here.
Yeah, for having us and for having both of us separately and at the same time, because it's a very humbling experience too.
Yeah,
I'm humbled to be able to provide it for you and to be able to help you over time to create this content that people will be able to look at for years and years to come. So you're forever welcome in my on my show and things like that. All right, everybody. Well, have a wonderful rest. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to go do some other stuff and kind of wind down for the evening, late afternoon, evening here. But until next time, everybody, be well, and we'll stay in touch, of course, over on the WhatsApp. And until next time, be well, everybody. And as we always like to say, help one person today, help 1 million people tomorrow.